Captain Santa. I'm Rebecca Lieb.
I'm Jason Horton.
And this is Ghost Town. On a drizzly, overcast day in late October 1971, Milwaukee scuba diver Gordon Kent Bellrichard was looking for a sunken ship called the Vernon, using sonar to survey the bottom of Lake Michigan's west coastal waters. Soon his sonar made a promising contact, and he descended to what appeared to be an upright, well-preserved ship 172 feet deep. But the wreck was not what Bellrichard expected. Without proper light, the diver surveyed the wreckage by feeling along its hull. Soon Bellrichard quickly realized that he had not discovered the Vernon, but a ship of legend, the Rouse Simmons, a Christmas tree ship that had disappeared in November 1912. Bellrichard's discovery ended decades of mystery that surrounded the fate of one of the most legendary ships and its much-loved captain. Today we're talking about the Great Christmas Tree Shipwreck and its skipper, Captain Santa. On November 23, 1912, Lake Michigan was in the midst of a storm, with ships desperately sailing for safety. One of these ships was a three-masted schooner named the Rouse Simmons, filled with thousands of evergreen trees from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, bound for Christmas sales in Chicago. Soon, Thanksgiving came and went, and with no sign of the ship, families of the crew began to fear they'd be mourning and not celebrating over the holidays, especially the family of Herman Schuneman. In 1910, entrepreneur and mariner Herman Schuneman bought stock in the Rouse Simmons. In the decades leading up to the Simmons' demise, Christmas had become a booming industry. The Schuneman brothers, Herman and August, had been selling Christmas trees in Chicago since around the start of the 20th century. Though August died in November 1898 aboard the S. Thal, a 52-ton, two-masted schooner, his younger brother Herman continued the family business with the Rouse. Schuneman cut out the middleman, selling his trees for between 50 cents to $1, right from the ship, adorned with electric Christmas lights and its own tree on the main mast. Schuneman, affectionately known as Captain Santa, which was also on his business cards, also gave away some of the trees to needy Chicago families. It was a beautiful thing, really, an enterprise that brought him to November 23, 1912. On the 23rd, Schuneman loaded the schooner with 5,500 trees from Thompson Harbor near Manistee, Michigan, and planned to make the week-long journey to Chicago. The difficult weather had discouraged his competitors from making their own journeys, and snow had covered the tree farms in Michigan and Wisconsin, resulting in a fortuitous Christmas tree shortage. Of course, Schuneman had to capitalize on this opportunity and get those trees to Chicago. Word soon reached Chicago of an unidentified schooner, spotted a week earlier, slowly making its way along the Wisconsin coast. By December 4th, the reports became more grim, with Chicago news outlets reporting large, stray evergreen trees randomly washing up onto Wisconsin beaches. A crew member, who had refused to board the Simmons in Michigan for its return south, was doing his own press tour, making claims that the ship had been overloaded and unfit to sail. He said that even rats had not wanted to board the, quote, doomed Xmas ship, as the papers called it. The crew member spoke of other omens signaling the ship's demise, including a crew of 13, an unlucky number, and the warnings of the daughter of co-captain Charles A. Nelson. Her name was Alvida, who many believed had a premonition about his fate and cried, begging him not to go. Holding out hope that the boat was lost or maybe harbored elsewhere, the search for survivors continued for weeks. A December 5th edition of the Chicago American, however, did not reflect that optimism, sharing headlines like, quote, lost hope for ship and Santa Claus boat lost. The crew was, in fact, never found, the worst fears of those poor families realized. But the Rouse Simmons was not lost to history, not by a long shot. More after the break. 60 years after its 1912 destruction, the Rouse Simmons ship is one of legend, story of the tree-filled boat and jolly captain acting as a kind of harbinger for Christmas. When Milwaukee scuba diver Gordon Kent Bellrichard actually finds the Rouse Simmons, the story gets a bit of closure, and even some underwater tourists looking to spy the ship for themselves. But even still, bad omens are found on the dive. In nautical folklore, A horseshoe would be nailed to a ship's mast or cabin wall near the wheel, with the ends pointed up in a U shape, a talisman of good luck and to ward off storms. When the wreck of the Rouse Simmons was discovered in 1971, the diver who found the ship noted that a nail was missing from the ship's horseshoe, causing it to turn downward, as if luck had run out. Even then, decades and decades later, the ship at the bottom of Michigan still held many, many Christmas trees, and some of them towards the bottom even still had their needles. Since the year 2000, the U.S. Coast Guard has ceremonially followed the Simmons path in a modern vessel loaded with evergreens, perpetuating the legend. So what exactly happened to the ship? Tamara Thompson, an underwater archaeologist for the Wisconsin Historical Society and one of the authors of the first ever archaeological survey of the Rouse Simmons, says that the Simmons likely never sank amid an evening blizzard. A call into the Two Rivers Life-Saving Station arrived in the mid-afternoon before the snow even began to fall. Similarly, records of the rescue efforts indicate that the life-saving vessel never glimpsed the distressed Simmons, suggesting that it likely sank before their arrival. Quote, "I get a lot of groans when I change the ending," Thompson ruefully admits. Herman Schunemann's bereft family sold Christmas trees well into the 20th century under the name Captain Santa's Christmas Trees. And of course, historically sound or not, the legend and its many ghostly details persevere among Great Lakes mariners. The story kept alive with ships embarking every year containing ceremonial Christmas trees, bringing good cheer to Chicago and the brave mariners of Lake Michigan.